Oh, the world sure feels noisy and a little unmoored. Same power structures and playbooks, different decade, but same outcomes. What? We need to change the game. But Women Advancing isn't about fixing women. We're busy reorienting leadership for the world we're living in and the one ahead. I'm your host, Kate Byrne. Each week, I talk with the women shaping what's next. Join us as we reset the compass on Women Advancing. Hey everyone, it's your host, Kate Byrne with Women Advancing. We spend a lot of time talking about women advancing. Hello, the podcast is named that. But far less time asking toward what? To what end? Too often, advancement is framed as more visibility, more responsibility, more speed, more, which just weighs me down thinking about it, with very little attention paid to whether the life underneath it actually even works. Today's conversation is an invitation to rethink that model altogether. What if success didn't require self-abandonment? What if wellness wasn't something you earned after building the thing, but part of how you built it in the first place? That's right, you integrate it within it. My guest today, Olivia Cleary, who is the founder and chief creative officer of the Clearly Collective, has made some intentional choices about how she works, where she lives, and how she listens to herself while building a business. This is not a conversation about opting out. It's about opting in with clarity and opting in to you. We talk about redefining ambition, setting up boundaries as a business school, using distance, geographic and psychological, to gain perspective, and designing a version of success that actually supports the human doing the work. What a concept. You can end a day feeling well. If you've ever felt successful on paper, but quietly, completely misaligned in your body, your cortisol is running cray-cray, check this out. And stay to the end for KB's takeaways. Women Advancing listeners, join me in welcoming today's guest, who is extraordinary not in only the level of her success, which includes founding a successful company, becoming one of the Tory Burch Fellows, winning the Darden Business School Entrepreneur Award, and most recently being named to the Forbes 30 Under 30, the founder, CEO, / I'd say creative director of the Clearly Collective, Olivia Cleary. Welcome, Olivia.
Thank you so much, Kate. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, we're going to really dive in a bit because I think Olivia has had this extraordinary ability to do what so many of us have wanted to do, and that's to build things on her own term, to hit a pause button when she needed a rest and a reset, and that only, as so many of us love to know, resulted in greater success. So let's jump right in. Quick little backstory. Tell us the story, how you came up with this whole beautiful idea.
Okay, so this was a hobby that turned into something quite viral. Started out as me just trying to make really meaningful gifts for my friends. And ultimately, what I did is I used Instagram as a platform for gathering feedback. And the first gift that I made for my friends was a silk scarf inspired by UVA, my alma mater. And the idea was I wanted it to be meaningful, but I didn't want any logos. And I also wanted it to feel elevated. So made that, goes viral on Instagram. And then random people start asking, can you do my college? Start building a little mini collection on the side. I have a full-time day job in architecture. And then corporations start reaching out. And we really started launching our white label design studio after McLaren, the F1 team, reached out and they called me up and they said, hey, can you make us a scarf? Then when they said the scarf, they said, can you make a dress? Can you make a car wrap? Can you do like our whole event? And opened me up to this whole world where we are today, where I run essentially a white label design studio where we take the essence of a brand, community, or destination and then create products from it. We have our own D2C line, which is silk scarves inspired by destinations and colleges, which is what is most like forward seeing. But the reason why I got the Forbes 30 Under 30 is because we're really disrupting the corporate gifting industry.
Yeah, no kidding you are, which is extraordinary. I had forgotten the piece about architecture. Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, it makes sense in some ways, right? Because design, structure, but that's an interesting jump.
Yes, it is and it isn't. So At UVA, I did architecture because I've always been creative, but the specific program I did was design thinking, and there's a lot of
Ah,
parallels between
yes.
the two because it's full immersion, start to end, and the way that I design my custom pieces for clients, whether that's a scarf or a different type of product, is really similar to how people build houses in the sense of let's talk to the
Hmm.
client, let's go to their house, let's figure out everything that means something to them, and then
Mhm.
let's work with them and iterate and bring them along that process to make sure that this is the most meaningful thing ever to them. And I bring that same process to the gifting aspect of the company.
Wow. So fast forward, you do this, you make this shift, and life has taken off, which
Yep.
is extraordinary. Has your definition of success shifted?
Success for me, I think, differed through the different phases of the company, and I would say I had to go through each definition of success in order to get to where I am today. So it started out as proof of concept. Anybody who wanted to buy the product, that felt good to me. It meant that what I was making was good enough to be, there was an exchange of like a monetary exchange. Then it evolved to be, okay, well, is the art like people want to buy my art now? Success now is defined by will they purchase it for at the correct value? Am I fairly being paid for the output that I am putting out there? And then the next phase of success was defined by just financial sustainability. Can I make this hobby into a life for myself? And then once I realized I could be financially stable, it was life sustainability, which is where I am today, where I know what to do to be successful in terms of finance. I know that the product works. I know there's a market fit, but how do we make this sustainable? And the only way to make it sustainable is with that life balance. And that's like what I'm in the heart of right now and still figuring out what like the nuances is of defining that success. And I'm sure there'll be another level of success after that. But yeah, those are my definitions of success.
Thinking of wellness as infrastructure,
Mhm.
put it to a structure oriented, because as you just said, sort of self care is often framed as something you do after work is
Yep.
done.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
doing it earlier. So, how do you think about wellness as a core infrastructure while you're actively now getting ready to build this next business? Because you're going to frickin' need to be like firing on all cylinders, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. So when I think about wellness, when you're in a high intensity period, the way that I think about it is that it's work hard, recover hard. And so
Ah,
if you are, working to the long hours of the night, which are actually that's what you have to do in order to be successful, then you have to recover just as much. And so what does that look like? It means for me, that means I massages or, like
right.
yoga. For me, it's very focused on like nervous system regulation. It's
Yeah.
things that bring my adrenals down, bring, my cortisol levels down so that I can be at peace because that's how you can be creative. And also, a really important part of recovering is the act of doing nothing, which is the most difficult thing you can do as an entrepreneur because you get rewarded for doing things. And so you're almost going against your instinct to do nothing because it's not productive. But what I have found is that if you don't have that in this hard recovery that is needed, it's not sustainable. And that's really where I'm at right now.
Right, because that's the whole bit of the boundary that you had to learn, right? Is you sometimes you
Absolutely.
have to learn that hard way to protect that energy and
Yeah,
because while it feels like it's not productive, it actually maybe it's a long-term productivity tool.
absolutely. Yeah. And one of the interesting things that I've found is during these periods of doing nothing, which could be anything from meditating, which I think works for some people, but for me, it's really long walks with AirPods in just so to block out sound, but there's nothing actually playing. And what I like to do is try to be like an observer of my own mind. And
Mhm.
I let my brain run out whatever thoughts are spinning. Like, did I send that email? Did I send that email? Okay, I need to, think about this plan and that plan. The moment those thoughts stop, there's some really cool stuff that happened on the other end of that. And it's really uncomfortable to lean into this like unpredictability of whatever that space is. But I've always had really amazing breakthroughs in this space of nothingness after I've let my brain run out. And it's actually ends up being creative and productive, even though it
Yeah.
feels like you're not leading into it.
That's actually a really when you think about it, it's a cool idea. It's almost like just letting the replay tape go on and on and on, and then it's almost as though you're witnessing your neuro self-regulation.
Yes. Yes.
It's like
Yeah. Let
then
let it putter out. Like it's gonna keep going and going and going, but just let it go, and then you can come in. Yeah,
which is also good, and that's probably a really good lesson too as an entrepreneur because it's so tempting if something doesn't happen right away. You're like, "Okay, forget it." So it
absolutely.
gives you that tasty little bit of patience that's like, "Oh, thank God I waited that extra half beat before giving up." Because to your point, something extraordinary just came through. Well, so, okay, w I know this has all been sort of relatively, within the last 6, 7 months, this kind of
Mhm.
awareness. Was there a moment when you realized with that old version
Yep.
that drove you to this? And what did that look like? What did you have to let go of to make room for?
Yeah. So, I think for me, it wasn't a moment or a light bulb moment. It was I was unhappy. I was
Mm.
and I think what that's now a signal to me that things aren't going the right way, but it
And what
wasn't.
does that look like?
I think that's a really good question. And from like getting into like the psychology of it, one of the first indicators that I know that I'm, being burnt out or, something is not working the right way is when you have self-doubt and self-thought and like you are attacking yourself and your brain is attacking itself. It's saying anything like, oh, like Liv, that idea is not going to work. Oh, you're not good enough for this, those self-doubts. And it's like if you think about your brain like a computer, let's just say like computers are not supposed to self-destruct. They're just supposed to move forward and forward and forward. So if
Mhm.
we apply that logic to our own brains, why would we want to self-destruct ourselves?
Right.
And whenever I get into those little mental loops, which are hard to get out of sometimes, especially if there's evidence that things aren't going well, the first
Right.
question is okay, let's look at the data. Yeah, are you actually failing? Is this actually true? And then the next part is, okay, well, let's just make a plan to get out of it. Let's just figure it out. And I've had a fair share of times when, the reality was things weren't working out and I just needed to get a plan to get out of it. And then you get really, your brain starts switching once you have a way out of it. And then
That's the plan.
physically, my check in system is my anxiety manifests very physically and it
Mm.
always happens in my chest, and I always feel a tightness in my chest if something isn't, like, working well, and I'll be honest, like, sometimes it just happens during stressful days and, you can't be perfect, and sometimes I will have tightness in my chest, but it's either, like, the self-destruct thoughts or the tightness in my chest that always make me come back and first have the data analytical approach, and then it's the body approach. It's,
Right.
"Okay, am I eating? Am I sleeping? Like, let's get the baseline back to normal."
The thing about all of this is when looking at the things that aren't working, I
Yeah.
find sometimes it's hard. I mean, it's scary. It's like it's there. It's kind of a form, I guess for me, it's a form of procrastination sometimes. That
Yeah.
is something that I know that isn't really right, but I don't really want to deal or I don't want to look at it or it's
Yep.
going to make me sad or.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you counter all of that? I guess the reality is if you don't, it's gonna get so much worse the longer you wait, so you might as well just rip the Band-Aid off and dive in.
Yes. Yes. I think that is the hardest part is the action taking.
Yeah.
And what I've found is I just talk about my problems with all of my close, friends and
Yeah.
family who know what I'm doing and are interested in what I'm doing. So we were having some positioning issues because we have both a B2B brand and a D2C line. And it's like
Right.
we have two different customers. And so it's hard to sometimes talk on our marketing channels to these people. And I've been trying to figure out how to reposition, but that conversation, I mean, I talked to so many different people and I talked to people, close family friends, but also people who I knew were smarter than me just to get different takes. And it started becoming more and more clear what I had to do. And some people would give me advice, and I would know that that was just bad advice because my clarity was,
Right?
surfacing. So I think I think for me, it's not like I always have to create a very clear plan, and that's done by maybe 3 months of talking to a lot of different people and just getting input. And that's how I'd say to get out of a rut like that.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think that's one of the things that I've been telling my daughters more and more is that, okay, it's fine. You can go talk and you can ask for advice and all that, but just remember everything that people say, it's gonna come with a bit of their baggage on it, and it's gonna land. You'll know the way it lands within you. Like,
Absolutely.
and you'll just say, "I would never do that," or, "Huh,
Yes.
okay."
And
Right?
that's a great thing. Once you realize that doesn't align, that's a signal that you're getting more clear in what you want.
Right, you're on
So
your
it's
way.
yeah, it's like, "Oh, good. Yeah,
So I can
yeah.
listen to me now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly."
Oh my
Yeah.
god. So, okay. So, things were getting crazy, you were unhappy, and
Yep.
then tell everyone where you went, moved.
So was living in New York for 4 years and definitely got caught up in the rat race, and I realized that it was too much for me. I needed a break. I was tired, exhausted, and I first moved to a tiny house in Santa Barbara, California, and I lived
Oh,
there for 2 months. And then I went to Charleston for 2 months, and then I went to Italy for a year. And
oh,
it was terrible, obviously.
yes, someone had to do it. Damn it.
Someone had to do it. The reasoning was partially just I think I didn't actually know why I wanted to do it at the time. I just knew I needed to change things up. It wasn't working for me, and I had this opportunity as like, a remote person. I could work from anywhere. I was like, "Yeah, I gotta take this." So I did. It was the best decision ever.
Oh, I'm so glad you did it because there would be a lot of people that I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, I
But
got that. I got that a lot. Yeah.
and that's another thing is you have to listen to you because if this
Mhm.
works what works for you is not gonna work for anybody else. Obviously,
Absolutely.
1, you're an entrepreneur to begin with, so you've already got more, guts and more
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
you've got good intuition. So after you just do that, it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this and let's just see what happens." And if nothing else, if it hadn't, I mean, it was gonna be great anyway because you were gonna have it added probably years and years to life just for kind of helping you get greater clarity, but also slough up
Mhm.
all the old stuff that wasn't a fit, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
that's okay too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think for me, especially I'm very into wellness, so this is all wellness talk here, but the impact that cortisol has on
Oh,
the longevity of your life is so bad, and it has an impact on you, like, physically, even in the short term. Like, the tightness in my chest was more of a constant thing, and that scared me. I was like, "I can't continue to live this way, but I still want to be successful and work really hard. So I need to shake things."
balance that.
Yeah, how do I balance that? Like, I gotta figure something out. Something has to change if I'm going to continue to, like, work as hard as I do. And that, like, obviously living in Europe is a very different lifestyle than the US, and it did teach me, like, how to regulate. I was almost, like, forced to by that culture.
Yeah, yeah, and there are plenty of successful people there.
Yeah.
By the
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah.
everybody. So there are other ways to do it. I know I once worked, for a Norwegian company, and that drastically shifted so many things. I gave myself so much more permission as a result. So,
Yep.
for folks who are listening and kind of craving more freedom or
Yep.
alignment, but they don't know even how to start, like, what's one permission slip or wish, you wish someone had handed you earlier?
I think one of the biggest permission slips that I would give somebody, and this is under the assumption that they are already working for themselves and building this life, perhaps it's still in chaos mode and you haven't figured it out. Listen to when your body is tired and take that nap when you need it because you have worked hard enough to have the luxury of setting your own hours. And if you plateau at 3 p.m., take that break because we know you're going to be working at 7 p.m. anyways. So, like, don't contain yourself to the 9 to 5 workday schedule that you came from. And I think figuring out what your rhythm is so important to your success. And not everybody works on a 9 to 5. So that's some advice I would give.
I think that's so true, and figure out what types of things you are good at working on at what
Mhm.
hour. Like, I'm much more if I have to do writing writing for me or anything, like, really math detail oriented, I first thing in the morning, just
Yep.
super crazy ass early morning where people think, "Oh my god, you're kidding, you get up at that hour?" I can't imagine not getting up at that hour.
Yes.
So quiet, and this has not started getting filled with all of this, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
And it doesn't always my schedule doesn't always work for other people, but it does work for me. So listening to the body, I'm so there with you. And there are gonna be people that are gonna push back and they're gonna say, "Yeah, but if I do that, I'm gonna fall behind."
Yep.
Why is that a bit of a myth? I mean, I think it's a myth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm totally leading the witness here.
Okay.
But, do you think that's t you can listen, I mean, you're living proof.
Yeah.
You can listen to your body and you can listen to what it needs and
Yeah.
not fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna give an analogy that I can't take credit for. My friend gave it to me, and it's the idea about falling behind. And imagine that every responsibility you have is like a beach ball, okay? And basically every day you have to decide how high you're going to hit that beach ball into the sky because it's going to come down at some point and they're all in the sky, but you can hit one a little harder so it comes back down a little bit later, or you can hit one a little bit lighter. Every all the beach balls are always going to come down and you're always going to be able to hit it back up. It just you I think the prioritization of these beach balls is the most important thing you can do in your day. And the second part I would say to that myth is like, have you ever tried to take a day off and not do anything? And or in terms maybe not do anything, but perhaps focus on just one task. And I'll use an example that I've done is that proved it to me that, oh, wait, I can take things off is when I'm in like deep design work, I sometimes need 6 hours of uninterrupted time that I could be, using for emails. I could be using it for meetings and stuff like this. But what I've found is that if I can shut off the world on Wednesdays and not talk to anybody, I get through so much stuff if I'm not code switching between a million different things. And you know what? The emails are still there and it's
Yeah.
okay? And then the other thing I'd say is like for tasks that take up your time, like email, like decks, use AI. Like all that basic work, free up your time. Like so
It's
uh,
absolutely true. Figure out a delegate all that stuff, and it isn't cheating.
yeah, it's just organization, it's just systems, yeah.
And it's also self-preservation, quite honestly, because then it takes
Absolutely.
the best for you. No, I've started doing that with actually Mondays, just meeting
Yes.
free Monday. Oh my god, game changer. No
Yeah.
phone calls either, just like
Yeah.
so just that one extra, and then if I want to do, then I'm doing it on my own thing. And I agree, you're so rested. And then also for people, seriously, it's okay to shut off when you are on vacation. That's the other
Absolutely.
thing.
You have to. That's a part of the recover hard. You really, like if you're, taking the time to go on vacation with, like, a loved one and you've spent the money to do it, do not waste it. Like, that's something I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you have a right hand, then delegate because it's a
Oh, yeah.
terrific, like, professional development opportunity.
Yep.
And guess what? It's a really good one to remember, especially for founders. Woo, it can go on without me,
Yes.
which when and if one day anyone should want to exit or have some kind of a succession plan,
Right.
you will feel more comfortable and the team will feel more comfortable too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also it's building up to that what's like the bus plan? It's like there's some terminology where it's like if you get what's the probability that if you get hit by a bus the company is going to go
Right.
under? Like you need to figure this out regardless. Like
Yeah.
you have to. Yeah.
That's so true. And I know there's some founders who pride themselves on, oh, the company is me. Well, that's great. But do you want it to live on?
Yeah. I think that that's also tying back to your first question, two definitions of success. I think the
Yes.
beginning success is that this company is me. And then as you phase into more of I think where I am now, which I used to be that old mindset, the
Sure.
success is that this company can still run without me, and which will help this to be sustainable.
Exactly. Well, and for me too, I think I had someone this morning to talk to me about this notion of back casting as opposed to forecasting.
Mm.
And figuring out, okay, if my ultimate goal at this point in time is to get here, how can I roll it back? How can
Mhm.
I reverse engineer? So what do
Oh,
we need
yeah.
to do? What kinds of things have to take place to make that happen?
Mhm.
Which I think is
Absolutely.
awesome. Oh my god. Okay, Olivia,
Mhm.
what advice would you give your younger self?
I think the advice I would give my younger self is to know the value in your work.
Mhm.
And if it's something that me or I value, there will be someone out there that values it just as much. And just because someone's trying to cheap you out, which, happens a lot when you're not established, that does not
Yes,
mean that you should buckle down for that. You should always understand your value.
absolutely, and it's one of the quickest things I think so many of us tend to undervalue. We get so upset because people underestimate us, and yet we're
Mhm.
usually the first ones to set that bar.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I cannot wait to see what happens next with you, the Olivia tale. And for those of you, Olivia and I are going to be doing a panel together at the Tom Tom Festival, which is happening in Charlottesville, Virginia, on at the Innovation Summit on April 23rd from 2 to 3. So by all means, if you find yourself or are inclined to want to come to Charlottesville, which you should because it's a lot of fun, and this festival in particular is amazing, make it down there.
Absolutely. I second all of that. It's a great place to even just hang out for the day.
Absolutely. All right, Olivia, to your continued success, and
Thank
thanks so
you.
much for sharing your many, many pearls.
Thank you.
What a fantastic conversation and so positive from a young founder. I love it. And she's been through a lot as in ups and downs and all arounds. And she's really continued to rise higher and higher and higher. And imagine your idea, which started off as, a hobby on an Insta page, going viral. Amazing. But one of the things I keep coming back to in the conversations like this is how quietly radical it can be to actually design a life that actually fits us, which is so stupid. So, what Olivia reminded me of is that clarity isn't something you just hustle your way into. You have to stop, you have to take that beat. And it often comes from changing your vantage point and slowing down and stepping back and listening more closely to yourself than to the noise around you. Advancement isn't always looking like acceleration. Sometimes it looks like discernment. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like choosing wellness, not as a reward, but frankly, as a downright requirement. So here's what I want to leave you with. What if the next level of your work doesn't ask you to push harder, but to design more intentionality? And that question alone can change everything. My takeaways: success doesn't have to cost you yourself. In fact, it's really far from successful if you no longer exist. Wellness is leadership infrastructure. It's not a luxury, it's a must have. Distance, be it geographical or psychological, that creates such extraordinary clarity. Boundaries are, in fact, a business skill as well as a personal skill. And you're allowed to redesign your definition of ambition and your definition of success. With that, I look forward to seeing you next time on Women Advancing. Thanks for listening. May this episode inspire you to move forward. Be sure to go to iTunes, Spotify, katebyrne.co, that's KATEBYRNE.co, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and listen to even more episodes. Here's to strong women. May we know them, may we be them, may we raise them. And be sure to meet them on the next Women Advancing. Till next time.